Hello everyone. In today's lesson we're going to learn about mandatos or commands. So let's begin with the formal commands in the form of usted and ustedes. So to make a command in Spanish with the form of usted and ustedes, you need to use the present subjunctive in both the affirmative and the negative command. So for example, if we want to say toma, then the usted command would be tome, tome. No tome, no tome. Now, let's take a look at volver. So, notice that volver is a stem-changing verb that changes from O to UE. Well, that stem change remains the same. So, it would be vuelva or vuelvan, no vuelvan, no vuelva in the usted form, or no vuelvan in the ustedes form. Now, salir is an irregular verb, so therefore it follows the pattern of the present subjunctive. So salga, and the negative would be no salga. Salgan, no salgan. Now let's take a look at familiar to commands. So the affirmative command is the form of the present indicative. Viaja. Now the negative command takes the form of the subjunctive. No viajes. So empezar, same thing, is a stem changing verb that changes from E to IE. So we need to grant that stem change. It would be empieza, and no empieces, okay, would be the negative form. Now notice that because this is a verb that ends in zar, then in the subjunctive form we have a change of spelling from Z to C. And the same thing happens with pedir. This is a stem changing verb from E to I, so then it would be pide, and the negative form would be no pidas. So like in any other grammar rule that we've learned in Spanish, there are certain verbs that are indicative. So we're going to have a plus sign, okay, for the affirmative command and a minus sign for the negative command. So decir is irregular. The affirmative command would be di. The negative, no digas. Hacer, haz. Negative, no hagas. Ir, ve. Negative, no vayas. Poner, pon. Negative, no pongas. Salir, sal. Negative, no salgas. Ser, sé. Now attention to the accent here, because remember that sé without an accent could be a reflexive pronoun or the impersonal sé, but sé with an accent is the command form of the verb ser. And then the negative form would be no seas. Tener, ten. No tengas. En venir, ven. No vengas. So only these 8 verbs in Spanish are irregulars in the familiar to commands. So now we have learned about, first, formal commands, usted and ustedes. Both affirmative and negative take the subjunctive form. Now, in the two commands, okay, in the affirmative, the verb takes the indicative form, and in the negative, it takes the subjunctive. Well, the nosotros, nosotras commands also take the subjunctive form in both affirmative and negative. So the nosotros and nosotros command is the equivalent in English of saying someone let's plus verb. So if I want to say let's dance, I would say bailemos. Okay? And the negative form would be no bailemos. Now, beber, bebamos. Let's drink, no bebamos, would be the negative form. Now, how about if I want to say let's open the door? So I would say abramos la puerta, no abramos. So let's review here. A are verbs. The ending is of the subjunctive hemos. Verbs that end in er, the subjunctive ending is amos. And verbs that end in er, the subjunctive is also amos. So let's do a quick review here of the affirmative commands, right? Oops, bailemos, bebamos, and abramos. Okay. Same thing with the negative. The only difference is that you're going to have a no in front of the verb. Now, the verb ir and irse, these are both irregular verbs. So in the affirmative command would be vamos in the form of ir, and then the negative command would be no vayamos. Now irse is a reflexive verb, so the affirmative command would be vámonos. Now the negative form would be no nos vayamos. So remember that always object pronouns or reflexive pronouns go before the verb when this verb is conjugated. Okay, so now let's take a look at how are we going to use pronouns with commands. So let's begin with object pronouns. So object pronouns, the position in the affirmative form is exactly the same as when the verb is an infinitive. So for instance, if I want to say buy it or I want to buy it, I say quiero comprarlo o comprarla, depending if what we're referring to is feminine or masculine. So in affirmative commands, for instance, if you want to say tell me the truth, okay, so if I want to use the to form, it would be dímela, okay. So la refers to la verdad, the truth. Me refers to me, you have to tell me the truth. And the command form, dímela. So in the negative case, it would be, I have to say no, then comes the indirect object pronoun, me, then the direct object pronoun, la, and then the verb in the subjunctive form. No me la digas. This is if we're using the to form, the to command. Okay? So now let's talk about reflexive pronouns. So for reflexive pronouns, they behave exactly the same as the object pronouns. In the affirmative command, if I want to say get off the bus, so I would use bájense. So notice the accent here on the A, and then the reflexive pronoun becomes one word with the verb, And then in the negative form would be no se bajen. Okay? So se is the pronoun and goes in between the no and the verb. So let's take a look at the nosotros commands. So when we use the pronoun nos and the pronoun se. So in both cases, we need to drop the final S. So for instance, if we want to say bajémonos, okay, bajémonos, if I were to say let's go down, right, we would simply say bajemos. There's an S here, right? But once I'm adding the pronoun nos, then that S disappears and becomes one word, bajémonos. Now, the negative command would be no nos bajemos. Right? So then the pronoun, again, goes between the no and the verb. Same thing with the pronoun se. So for example, if I want to say, let's give it to him tomorrow, in Spanish we would say, démoselo. So with an accent on the E. So again, as you notice, same pattern. The S that should go here gets removed, and we add the IOP and the DOP as part of one word. Now, if the negative form would be no se lo demos. Same pattern. IOP, DOP between no and the verb. Now, our last information about commands is indirect commands with él, ella, ellos, or ellas. So this is the equivalent in English to say, let someone do something. And in Spanish, the equivalent is que plus the verb in subjunctive. So let's take a look at the sentence. If she doesn't trust me, comma, let her call to make the reservation. So as we just said, indirect object commands is the equivalent in Spanish of let someone do something. In this case, it would be let her call to make the reservation. So the first part of the sentence, right? If she doesn't trust me, so then si no confía en mí, then let her call would be que llame ella. So again, we have que, subjunctive, llame, plus pronoun ella, and then the rest of the sentence, para hacer la reservación. Okay, and that's it for today.